In this video, I'm interviewing Lynzie Kent, one of Toronto's best event planners, to talk to her about weddings and corporate events. As you may be aware, Baro's third floor, the loft, is a perfect place for events, and we thought who better than to ask Lynzie to join us and help our viewers and our audience better understand how to plan events. So let the viewers and the audience know who you are, when did you get into this, and why event planning?
Sure. So I've been doing this for the past probably 15 years, but in business for myself for about 6 years. I got into the event industry through music. I'm a singer.
Okay.
And so my parents had a band when I was a teenager. They did corporate events and weddings and that kind of stuff. And eventually my mom quit and she didn't want to sing lead anymore. So I stepped in and I started singing lead, and I was kind of like thrust into this world of corporate events and weddings.
What is your concentration?
Right now, the majority of our business is wedding planning.
Okay.
I also do corporate events and a lot of branded events, specifically focused on event design and creating unique activations for our clients based on their brand story or based on their personal story.
Okay. And so you sing. Has a client ever asked you to actually be the singer of the wedding?
Well, I also run a live band called Electric Blonde. We're a 9-piece band and we do corporates and weddings.
Okay.
My main focus, me personally, within my business is the design aspect of our events.
Okay.
And then my staff run the logistics. And then I also sing lead for my band, so kind of I'll head into an event, I'll be there for the entire setup and the design of the day. 7 o'clock hits, I head to another event, I get on stage, I sing till 2 a.m.
So you're like a real Ryan Seacrest.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
busy.
I don't know if that's a good thing.
It is a good thing. Ryan Seacrest is amazing. He's a busy, good, successful entrepreneur.
Okay, yes, then yes, I am a real life Ryan Seacrest.
There you go. What do some people neglect when selecting a venue?
I think that when people are looking for a venue, one of the first things that they do is they come into the space and they rightly focus on how it makes them feel.
Okay.
And how if they can envision themselves throwing their corporate event or their wedding in that space. But I often think that people neglect to consider their guests' experience and all of the tiny aspects that make up the entire guest experience, from walking in the door to finding a parking spot to are there stairs to how many bathrooms are there and is that sufficient for the amount of people that they want to invite, and how much seating is there. So I often push my clients to really focus on choosing a venue based on guest experience.
That's amazing to hear, because a huge focus here at Baro is our guest experience. We have it all mapped out and we take a very strategic approach to it. So,
I can tell.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Good, it's working. What about for your relationship with the venue? How does that come into play, and how important is that to obviously the experience? Like, what are some things that you're looking for to make sure that that's the spot, right? And you would say that's the spot for your client.
One is just a general sense of collaboration with an event planner. I think that a lot of the times with venues, you walk into a space and because they do it every weekend, they kind of get into this pattern or routine in their space that they don't like to break. And
Right.
I most love, from a planning perspective, when you walk into a venue and they're open to doing new things and they're very creatively collaborative with you.
Okay.
Another thing that I look for is the ability to use also my connections and give my clients the benefit of working with some of my connections, and I think it's really lovely when venues are open to that as well. I also love when a venue has somebody on staff who's specifically dedicated to managing events in their space, because I often find that as the event planner, our job is to manage logistics and any vendors who aren't really related to food and beverage.
Right.
But from the venue's point of view, I really would love to have a liaison that is all about food and beverage.
Got it. Okay, so like a single point of accountability for you to kind of be your Robin to your Batman.
Exactly. I love your analogies.
Yeah, I'm full of them. If you were to host a corporate event for any brand, what brand would it be?
Oh my God, Anthropologie,
Okay.
hands down.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just
Why?
love their use of I love their use of mixed media in the way that they present their products and the way that they merchandise. I love their window displays. I think that for me, like when I walk into Anthropologie, I'm like, this is what I want my house to look like, what I want my life to look like, and so designing an event for them would be really exciting for me.
So on the theme of corporate events, and then we'll flip it over to weddings in a moment.
Yeah.
If somebody is watching this video and they have been tasked with hosting or coordinating the yearly company event, and maybe they're still new to this, what are some tips that you could give them to make sure that there's increase the likelihood that they're successful?
Well, the first, again, I'm going to go back to guest experience.
Sure.
Because I think, honestly, that is where an event's success begins and ends. A seamless guest experience that is comfortable for your guests and that makes them feel warm and welcome the entire time. That's number one to me. The second thing I think is that people have been to so many typical events by this point. They've been to so many weddings and cocktail parties that now they're really looking for a unique experience, something different that they wouldn't do in their everyday life. So when people are planning a corporate party, whether it's like a client appreciation party or they have a specific message that they want to get across on a new product or practice, how do you put that message or that brand into an experience that your guests can have, that they're going to leave with and that they're going to remember? So
are there any companies that you're just like, they know how to do this properly?
Well, I think it really comes down to understanding your brand.
Okay.
And understanding your brand's messaging. And there's a company in Toronto that I really love working on events with. They're called Aiello Wine Club. Have you ever heard of them?
No.
The reason I love Aiello so much is because they really get to the heart of what that specific wine brand is about, and then they create really unique experiences for people based on that brand. We've worked with them a couple of times, and we did one for Lindemann's Gentleman's Collection, and it was a whole new collection of red wine that was geared towards men. And the things that they did here, they had like a live barber shop where men could go and get like their totally manscaped right at the event. We made a ceiling of neckties, vintage neckties, and as people were leaving, we'd let them pick one and take it home.
That's sweet.
So just like unique things that are really inspired by the brand. And so, I mean, in terms of a company that inspires me, yeah, I think Aiello is a really good example.
Now, switching gears to kind of your bread and butter to weddings.
Yeah.
How do you manage the enthusiasm, the anxiety, the emotions that your client is going through?
We have a rock solid process when it comes to weddings. Now, over the past few years, it's just like, if you trust us, if you follow this process with us, you will not have any problems.
Okay.
It comes down to a science. There are things that you need to ask, there are questions that you need to ask, and there are answers that you need to know in order for a wedding to be a seamless event. And we really try to encourage our clients to trust us as much as possible and to trust that process. And if they do, their expectations, their anxiety, their excitement, it will be managed at a reasonable level.
So you used the word if a couple times. Have you ever had to walk away from an engagement because you felt like I'm not set up for success?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yeah, we've had to, I call it a client divorce. We've had to divorce a client a couple
What
times.
about on the venue side?
I've never actually walked away from a venue because most often my clients, by the point that we realize that it might not be the right venue for us, we're too far in. The way that it works, that a lot of the times clients will come to us in advance of their wedding, but they've already booked their venue. So a lot of the times we don't really have a say. Well, yeah, like especially when it's like a venue that, there are a couple venues in the city now that I specifically will not take a wedding at because I do not like the way that the venue is run. At that point, I'm just saving myself stress, you know, by saying we're not going to work here anymore because it's not organized. Or
do people budget effectively when it comes to wedding?
No.
They always undershoot it.
It's a constant fact in the wedding media that the average wedding in Canada costs about $35,000 in Canada. But when you're in the city of Toronto, things cost more. So when I have clients coming in my door saying our budget's $30,000, we have 200 people, we want to do a 4-course meal, it's like we want a live band, I can't do that here in the city of Toronto for you at the level that you expect. If you're willing to make concessions, if you're willing to DIY, if you're willing to approach the event in a totally unique way, yeah, we can save money for sure. But a lot of people aren't willing to do that. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. And because they'll have non-negotiables, but then their budget doesn't match those non-negotiables.
Yeah.
Sticking with the theme of budgeting, what are some things that people forget to consider when they're creating their budget for their wedding before they speak to you, let's say?
So I think one of the biggest things that people don't consider are things that they don't know about.
So I'm completely agreeing to this. Tell me some things that I would never have considered. Like I think, well, food and booze and music.
Yeah.
And then everything else is secondary to me.
Totally. So I think people are constantly surprised at the cost of floral and decor. Being that we're in Canada, the majority of our floral is imported. So the costs often surprise people. Another are the cost of rentals. If you've booked a venue that's a totally DIY space where you need to bring everything in, people are always shocked at how much it costs to bring in 150 wine glasses, 150 place sittings, 150 chairs. Another thing that people often don't consider are landmark fees. And in the city of Toronto, a lot of venues have landmark fees.
Can you describe it? What is that?
So a landmark fee is a fee that the venue charges on top of an outside service that's coming in, like a caterer or a rental company, or really the venue can dictate whatever they charge landmark fees on. Okay. And this cost is essentially the cost of managing these vendors that are coming into their space and collaborating with them and the labor that's involved in that. In some cases, I think a landmark fee is reasonable. In some cases, I think it's totally unreasonable and it's a way that people make money in the city.
Got it.
And so clients, first of all, it's difficult when you're not in the event industry to justify the landmark fee to a client. But second of all, they're like, what is a landmark fee?
Right.
Why am I being charged another $3,000 on top of my catering bill? And where is this money coming from in the budget?
Right.
Right? So that's one of the biggest ones that we deal with because oftentimes it's quite high.
What do you wish the bride and the groom knew before consulting with you?
I think it's important that clients research the type of wedding that they want in advance of meeting with a planner.
You mean the theme?
No, not the theme, the flow.
Got it.
So do they want to sit down?
Sure.
Do they want to do a cocktail style? Do they want it to be very traditional in that there will be X amount of speeches and dancing after, or do they want dancing in between meal courses, or you know what I mean?
Sure.
I also think that it's not their fault, but I wish people knew that in the city of Toronto things are going to be more expensive than they anticipate.
Okay. And if you were to plan the wedding of any celebrity, past or present, who would it be and why?
Oh my gosh.
No loaded questions here.
I think that for me, maybe Debbie Harry. Well, I think like for me it makes sense to say a musician because like I derive a lot of my inspiration from music,
Okay.
and so she was the lead singer of Blondie.
Got it.
You know?
I know, I've heard of them, Blondie.
Okay, there you
Just
go.
not that- Okay, there you go.
Debbie Harry.
That's a good
Or Sarah Jessica Parker, but
Okay.
as Carrie from Sex and the City.
Got it. Okay, I know who that is. Okay. So switching back to corporate events, if you were to be planning an event for a medium or large size company, how much time do they need in advance to throw a successful event?
Because corporate event planning is a little bit more cut and dry than weddings, you need less time.
Okay.
So if you're working with an event planner, I think that a 3-month span is ample time for a corporate event.
Okay.
If you're working on a wedding, I think anywhere from like 6 to 12 months is ample time. But, you know, I've done corporate events in like a month.
Really?
I've done weddings in like 3 weeks. Like, you know, it's just all about how quickly you are willing to make decisions.
Okay. What is the event planning industry like in Toronto?
It's competitive, but there's enough work for everybody. I really truly believe that. Like, our brand is different in that, you know, a lot of people are coming to us for this really creative, hands-on design that we offer, whereas there are other planners out there who are specifically doing like corporate meetings and presentations and a very logistical service. So it's competitive, but I do believe that there's enough work for everybody.
Lynzie, my last question. If you were to plan a wedding in any city in this world, where would it be and why?
Right now, I think Palm Springs.
Okay. Why
Yeah.
Palm Springs? I was actually recently there for a wedding, and it was one. I think I know exactly why you recommended that. It was one of the best weddings I've ever been to.
We just did an editorial shoot there in November, and it was like my bucket list dream to go to Palm Springs and shoot in the desert and with like all the cool foliage. And we got to shoot in this like 1960s, like mid-century sprawling mansion.
Awesome.
It was so cool. So for me, it's really like the visuals there. Like I love the mid-century fonts. I love all of the foliage, the palm trees, the cacti. I love the bougainvillea. I love the colors, and I think that just growing up in Canada and being an event planner here in Canada, you're limited in some of the stuff that you can use. So when I see these California wedding planners working in these beautiful spaces, I covet that. I want to be able to use the materials that they're using. So.
Lynzie, thank you so much for sharing all the valuable insight you shared with us today. Where can any viewer find you?
Yeah, so our website is www.lovebylynzie.com, and you can also find us on Instagram at lovebylynzie.
Awesome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. If you have any questions that Lynzie can answer, feel free to leave the comment and question below. Everything we reference, from companies to Lynzie's contact information, will also be referenced down below as well too. And we will see you next time.